I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the delete button. The Instagram photo showed my mother and sister beaming at the resort's welcome dinner, crystal glasses raised high. The caption read, "Cox Girls Only," followed by a string of heart emojis. I wasn't in it, of course. I'd been the one taking the photo. "My name is Hannah, and I just spent $42,000 on a luxury villa vacation that I'm apparently not supposed to be in. Hannah, darling, could you check if they got my dietary restrictions right for tomorrow's breakfast?" My mother's voice carried across the terrace, dripping with that special tone she reserved for service staff. And me. "Already done, Mom. No dairy, extra egg whites." I tucked my phone away, forcing a smile. The Caribbean sunset painted everything gold, but somehow the warmth didn't reach our table. "That's why we keep you around," Tabitha, my sister, laughed. She was already on her third glass of champagne. "Our little personal assistant." I gripped my water glass tighter. "I'm actually the one who— Oh my God, did you see Sasha's arriving tomorrow?" Tabitha cut me off, waving her phone at our mother. "She has like 500,000 followers now. This trip is going to be amazing for her content." "Sasha?" I blinked. "She wasn't on the guest list." "I added her this morning," Tabitha shrugged. "You can sort out her room situation, right? Maybe give her yours? You're better suited to the smaller guest room anyway." Mom nodded approvingly. "Always thinking ahead, Tabitha. Unlike some people who just exist in the background." The resort staff brought out our main courses, and I watched them set down the perfectly plated meals I'd spent weeks coordinating with the chef. My mother immediately began photographing her dish. "Hannah, your hair is reflecting oddly in my shot," she sighed. "Could you move?" I stood up automatically, years of conditioning kicking in. As I shifted my chair, a memory flashed. Me at 12, being told to wait in the car while they went shopping. Me at 16, left behind at a restaurant because the table only seats 2. Me at 24, planning my mother's birthday party only to be introduced as the help. "Actually," I said, sitting back down firmly, "I think I'll stay right here." "Don't be difficult," Tabitha rolled her eyes. "We need these shots for the gram. You know how it is. First impressions." "First impressions," I echoed. My platinum member card felt heavy in my pocket. The one they didn't know about. The one that made this whole trip possible. "Speaking of impressions," my mother pursed her lips, "couldn't you have worn something more appropriate for dinner? That sundress is rather basic." "It's Reformation," I said quietly. "It's trying too hard," Tabitha smirked. "Like your luggage. I mean, really, Hannah, a Samsonite." They laughed, heads together, a perfect picture of exclusivity. I picked up my phone again and opened the resort's app, checking the membership terms one more time. There it was, in clear text. Primary member must be physically present for all premium amenities and access. "Oh, Hannah," my mother called out, not even looking up from her phone. "We're thinking of doing an early check-in to the villa tomorrow while you handle the luggage transfer. Be a dear and make sure everything's arranged." I felt something shift inside me. A quiet click, like a lock falling into place. "Of course," I smiled. "I'll take care of everything." They clinked glasses again, snapping more photos without me. I watched them pose and preen, knowing they had no idea what was coming. My finger traced the edge of my member card, and for the first time in years, I felt something other than hurt. I felt powerful. "To family," they toasted. "To karma," I whispered to myself and opened my laptop to begin planning. Later that night, as I lay in my basic hotel room, I received a text from my best friend Thea. "How's it going with the toxic twins?" I sent her the Cox Girls Only photo and waited. 3 dots appeared, then, "Please tell me you're not letting them get away with this again." I thought about the villa's strict access protocols, about my carefully crafted itinerary, about all the premium experiences that required member authorization, about how neither my mother nor Tabitha had bothered to read the fine print when I offered to handle the boring details. "Don't worry," I typed back. For once, being the invisible organizer is going to work in my favor. I set my alarm early, knowing tomorrow would be interesting. Very, very interesting. Morning arrived with the kind of perfect sunshine that belongs in travel brochures. I was already up, watching my mother and sister rush through breakfast from my quiet corner of the resort cafe. Hannah, Tabitha's voice cut through my peace. Why aren't these bags organized yet? Sasha lands in 2 hours. I looked up from my coffee. I thought we were all checking in together at 3. Change of plans, my mother announced, dropping her designer luggage tag in front of me. Tabitha and I are heading to the villa early. We need to get the best rooms set up for photos before Sasha arrives. You understand? Actually, I started. Oh my God, Tabitha interrupted, picking up my carry-on. Is this seriously from Target? How embarrassing. Keep it in your room when Sasha's around, okay? I watched them huddle over Tabitha's phone, planning their content schedule. A memory surfaced, my high school graduation, them leaving early for a spa day because the ceremony was dragging. I'd walked across the stage to empty seats. Hannah, my mother's sharp tone yanked me back. Are you listening? We need you to handle check-in for Sasha while we get settled. Just stay here with the luggage. You'll only clutter up the photos anyway. Right, I said softly, because I'm just the planner. Exactly, Tabitha beamed, missing my sarcasm entirely. Finally, you're getting it. Come on, Mom, the golf cart's waiting. They clicked away in their matching designer sandals, leaving me with a mountain of luggage and their room preferences scribbled on a napkin. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages. They're doing it again, I typed to Thea. Tell me you're not letting them, she replied instantly. Just watch. I switched to the resort app and pulled up my membership profile. With 3 taps, I confirmed my settings. No proxy check-ins allowed. Member must be physically present for all access. My phone buzzed. A text from Tabitha. Having the staff move our things now. Handle Sasha's arrival. Don't need you here until dinner. I smiled and typed back. Okay, good luck with check-in. The resort's head concierge, Marco, approached my table. Ms. Hannah, everything is prepared according to your specifications. Shall I inform you when your family arrives at the villa? Please do, I nodded. And Marco, remember what we discussed about the membership requirements? Of course, madam. Only you can authorize access. It's our strictest policy. I checked my watch. In about 20 minutes, my mother and sister would arrive at the villa, full of self-importance and Instagram dreams. In 21 minutes, they'd learn what members only really meant. My phone chimed again. A message from Sasha. Landing soon. Can't wait to create content with the Cox girls. I typed back. Looking forward to it. By the way, what's your stance on family karma? While waiting, I scrolled through old photos. There we were at Disney World, me holding everyone's bags outside the rides. Christmas morning, me playing photographer while they posed with presents. Mom's wedding to her second husband, it lasted 6 months. Me coordinating with vendors while Tabitha gave the toast. Always present, never seen. My phone erupted. Multiple incoming calls from both of them. I declined each one, watching the notifications pile up. What do you mean we can't check in? Fix this now. The staff says we need you here. Ridiculous. Hannah, answer your phone. I finished my coffee slowly, savoring each sip. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the villa's security feed, a perk of my platinum membership. There they were, gesturing wildly at the front desk, their perfectly curated outfits getting wrinkled by the minute. This is absolutely unacceptable. I could hear my mother's voice through the feed. Do you know who we are? The staff remained professionally calm. We understand, madam, but we cannot override the membership protocols. Only Ms. Hannah can authorize villa access. But we're her family. Nevertheless, madam. My phone buzzed again. A message from Thea. Well? I sent her a screenshot of the security feed. She replied with a row of popcorn emojis. Finally, I picked up my embarrassing Target luggage and headed toward the spa for my scheduled massage. As I walked, my mother's call came through again. This time, I answered. Yes? Hannah, she hissed. What is the meaning of this? Get over here immediately. I paused, letting the moment stretch. Oh, I thought you didn't need the planner until dinner. I'd hate to. What was it? Clutter up your photos? Hannah? I have a massage booked, I said pleasantly. We can discuss the check-in situation afterward, unless of course you'd like to rethink the room arrangements. The silence on the other end was delicious. I'll see you in 2 hours, I said and hung up. For the first time in my life, I was calling the shots. And I was just getting started. The spa's eucalyptus-scented tranquility shattered when my phone vibrated for the 47th time. I knew because I'd been counting. Your family is quite persistent, my massage therapist said diplomatically, eyeing the buzzing phone. They're learning a valuable lesson in patience, I replied, just as another staff member knocked on the door. Ms. Hannah? Sorry to interrupt, but your sister is rather adamant about speaking with you. She's in the lobby. I wrapped myself in the plush robe and checked my phone. 14 missed calls, 23 texts, and... oh, a live Instagram story. I clicked play. There was Tabitha, perfectly made up despite the heat, recording herself in the resort lobby. Literally stranded here because someone is on a power trip. Can you believe this? We're being held hostage by our own sister. I stepped into the lobby just as she was starting another take. No one's holding you hostage, Tabitha. You're free to check into any other hotel. She whirled around, phone still recording. Finally! Do you have any idea what you've put us through? Mom's about to have a breakdown. Sasha's landing any minute. And we're stuck in the lobby like common tourists. Where is Mom anyway? Trying to reach Dad to talk some sense into you, she snapped. I laughed. Dad? The one she hasn't spoken to in 8 years? That should be interesting. This isn't funny, Hannah. Do you know how many followers are watching this drama? I do, actually. Your story's getting quite a bit of engagement, especially the part where you called me the help. Her face fell slightly. That was a joke. Was it? Like when you told everyone at my college graduation party that I was the hired event planner? That was years ago. Or last Christmas when you took credit for the entire holiday dinner I spent 3 days cooking. You're being ridiculous, she huffed, but her phone had dropped to her side. Just authorize our check-in and we can forget this whole thing. No. No? Not until we establish some new rules. Mom chose that moment to storm in, her designer sundress slightly wilted from the heat. Hannah, Marie, this childish behavior stops now. I've had to cancel our sunset photo shoot and Sasha is right here. A cheerful voice called out. We turned to see a tall, glamorous woman wheeling her luggage through the lobby doors. Oh my God, this place is amazing. I've been following your stories, Tabitha. Such drama. My followers are living for it. I watched my sister's face cycle through panic, embarrassment, and forced charm. Sasha, we're just having a tiny family discussion. About the membership thing? I looked it up. It's actually a super exclusive program, Sasha said, turning to me with unexpected warmth. You must be Hannah. The staff at the airport couldn't stop talking about how you arranged everything. Mom's eyes narrowed at this shift in dynamics. Yes, Hannah's very good at arrangements, which she's currently using to manipulate us. Actually, I said, pulling out my member card, I'm just following the rules. Rules that were made very clear when I spent $42,000 on this trip. You what? Tabitha's phone dropped completely. 42,000? Mom's voice went up an octave. But we thought the company paid. My company? The one you tell everyone is just a little planning business? No, Mom, I paid. For everything. Including the private chef you bragged about on Facebook without tagging me. Sasha's eyes were darting between us like she was watching a tennis match. Her phone was definitely recording. So here's how this works, I continued, feeling surprisingly calm. The villa has 4 master suites, equal size, equal view. No one gets the best room because I'm the member and I say they're all equal. Photos will include everyone who wants to be in them. And most importantly, I'm not staff, I'm family. Either accept those terms or find another resort. The lobby fell silent. Mom's face had gone from red to white. Tabitha was staring at her feet. And Sasha? Sasha was grinning like she'd just won the content lottery. I think that sounds perfectly reasonable, Sasha said brightly. And honestly, this whole thing would make an amazing series about family dynamics and standing up for yourself. This is private family business, Mom hissed. Not anymore, I said, nodding at Tabitha's phone still broadcasting. So what's it going to be? They exchanged looks, the kind they'd shared over my head my entire life. But this time, I held all the cards. Fine, Mom finally said through gritted teeth. We accept your terms. Wonderful. I turned to the waiting staff. Marco, please help my family with their luggage. We're ready to check in now. As we walked to the golf carts, Sasha fell into step beside me. That was badass, she whispered. Think you could teach me about membership programs sometime? I smiled, watching my mother and sister trail behind us like chastised children. Absolutely. Lesson 1. Always read the fine print. For the first time since arriving, I led the way, and no one told me to move out of frame. The villa's private dining room hummed with tense energy as our first group dinner began. Mom kept adjusting her napkin, a nervous tell I recognized from childhood. Tabitha was uncharacteristically quiet, tapping her perfectly manicured nails against her water glass. So, Sasha broke the silence. Hannah, tell me more about your business. The staff mentioned you handle logistics for some major clients? Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. Oh, Hannah just does some basic planning work. Nothing too... Actually, I interrupted. I run a luxury logistics firm. We handle everything from corporate retreats to royal weddings. Tabitha choked on her wine. Royal weddings? Remember last summer when I couldn't make it to your cat's birthday party? I was in Dubai, coordinating a sheikh's daughter's wedding. But you never said, Mom trailed off. You never asked. The chef arrived with our first course, addressing me directly. Ms. Hannah, I've prepared the tuna tartare exactly as we discussed. The wasabi pearls you suggested are a beautiful touch. Thank you, Antoine. It looks perfect. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. You know the chef by name? Of course she does, Sasha chimed in, photographing her dish. Hannah's apparently their most elite member. The spa director couldn't stop raving about her. I watched my sister's face darken. This wasn't how things usually went. Normally, she was the center of attention, the one people fawned over. Speaking of membership, I said casually, everything on this trip is under my name. Think about that before calling me the help again. The silence that followed was delicious. A resort guest approached our table, champagne in hand. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but are you the Cox family? We heard about the amazing private sailing tour tomorrow. Yes, Tabitha perked up instantly. I arranged... Oh, you must be Hannah's sister. The woman smiled. We met Hannah at the members' lounge earlier. She's quite exceptional, isn't she? The way she coordinated everything. I sipped my wine, watching Tabitha deflate like a punctured balloon. Mom's face had developed an interesting twitch. Hannah? Sasha said. Would you mind if I featured some of this in my content? My followers would love a behind-the-scenes look at luxury travel planning. I don't think... Mom started. I'd be happy to, I cut in. As long as I'm credited properly this time. The barb landed. Mom's hand shook as she reached for her wine glass, and suddenly I was 12 again, sitting in Dr. Parker's office during our one and only attempt at family therapy. Can you recall a moment when you felt truly valued by your mother? The therapist had asked. I couldn't, not one. Hannah? Sasha's voice pulled me back. You okay? Perfect, I smiled, just remembering something. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of exquisite food and pointed conversations. Every staff member who approached directed their questions to me. Every compliment landed squarely in my court. The power dynamic had shifted so completely it was almost comical. As dessert arrived, Mom tried one last time to regain control. "Hannah, darling, about tomorrow's schedule." "Already set," I said firmly. "Unless you'd prefer to book your own activities? Without my membership discount, of course." She blanched at the implied cost. Later, as we walked back to our suites, Tabitha grabbed my arm. "This isn't like you, Hannah. All this assertiveness. What happened to my little sister who used to do anything to make everyone happy?" "She grew up," I replied, gently removing her hand, "and she's done being invisible." "We never meant to." "Yes, you did." I turned to face her. "You and Mom have been pushing me into the background my entire life. Well, guess what? The background player just became the main character." "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Tell me, Tabitha, why did Eric break up with me 6 years ago?" She went pale. "What?" "Sasha mentioned something interesting earlier, about you and my ex." That was—" "Save it," I said quietly. "I already know. I just wanted to see if you'd finally tell the truth." I left her standing in the hallway, her perfect facade cracking just a little. Back in my suite, I opened my laptop to check tomorrow's schedule. A message from Thea popped up. "How's the revenge tour going?" I sent her a photo of dinner, everyone's faces telling their own story. Mom's barely concealed anger, Tabitha's wounded pride, Sasha's fascinated documentation, and me. Finally, in the center of the frame. "They're learning," I typed. "Slowly." "Good," she replied, "because I just booked my flight. Time to really shake things up." I smiled, thinking of tomorrow's carefully planned activities. They thought today was bad? They had no idea what was coming. The best revenge, after all, is served in courses. And we were just getting to the main dish. Morning brought another perfect day and a complete shift in tactics from my mother and sister. I should have known they wouldn't go down without a fight. "Hannah, sweetie," Mom cooed, appearing at my breakfast table. "You look lovely today. That swimsuit really brings out your eyes." I raised an eyebrow. "Yesterday you called it department store chic." "Oh, I was just teasing. You know how proud we are of you, don't you? All this success with your business. The one you told Aunt Linda was a cute little hobby?" She flinched but recovered quickly. "Misunderstanding. Now, about today's yacht excursion. Already arranged. We leave in an hour." "Perfect. And could you maybe—" "No. You don't even know what I was going to ask. You were going to ask me to rearrange the seating so you and Tabitha could get better photos. The answer is no." Her smile tightened. "You've become quite assertive." "Funny how that happens when you stop accepting scraps of attention." Tabitha appeared, looking suspiciously cheerful. "Morning, family. Hannah, you absolute goddess, could you help me with something? Sasha needs a helicopter tour arranged for her content, and since you're so amazing at planning—" "Still treating me like your personal assistant?" I asked mildly. "Even after yesterday?" "What?" "No, I just thought, since you're so good at— Sasha can book her own tour, through the regular channels, like everyone else." "But—" "No." They exchanged looks, the kind that used to make my stomach knot with anxiety. Now I just found it amusing. "Fine," Tabitha snapped, dropping the act. "Be difficult. But remember, we're still your family." "Are we?" "Because families don't usually have group chats called Hannah the House Mouse." They both froze. Sasha, who had been approaching our table, stopped mid-step. "How did you—" Tabitha's voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe don't leave your phone unlocked when you're drunk by the pool," I said, standing up. "The yacht leaves in 50 minutes. Don't be late. The member has to be present for departure." I walked away, leaving them stammering. Sasha hurried after me. "Okay, that was intense," she said, "but also kind of iconic. Listen, about that group chat. I saw some of those messages when Tabitha was showing me photos, and I need to tell you something. What? It's about Eric. Your ex? My stomach clenched. What about him? The reason he broke up with you. Tabitha didn't just steal him after. She was seeing him for months while you were together. She used to brag about it in their social circle. The world tilted slightly. What? She told everyone it was okay because you were just the practice girlfriend anyway. Your mom knew too. I'm sorry, I thought you should hear it from someone. 6 years of wondering what I'd done wrong crashed down around me. All those family dinners where they'd comforted me about the breakup, knowing the truth. Hannah? Sasha touched my arm. You okay? Perfect, I said, pulling out my phone. Excuse me, I need to make some calls. 10 minutes later, I had rearranged the entire day. The yacht's open bar was now a cash bar, members' privileges revoked. The premium photo spots? Suddenly reserved for other guests. The Wi-Fi? Mysteriously slow for everyone except my devices. Mom cornered me as we boarded. Hannah, let's be reasonable. We can work this out like adults. Like we worked out Eric? I asked sweetly. She paled. That was years ago. Save it. I know everything now. 6 years of lying to my face, watching me blame myself. You know what the worst part is? I actually believed you loved me enough to help me through that breakup. I do love you. We both do. We wanted to protect you. From what? The truth? Or from outshining your precious Tabitha? That's not fair. Neither was watching my sister steal my boyfriend with my mother's blessing. But here we are. The yacht's captain approached. Ms. Hannah, we're ready when you are. Thank you, Captain Phillips. I turned back to my mother. Enjoy the cruise. Oh, and the bar? It's cash only now. Hope you brought your wallet. I moved to the upper deck, claiming the best spot. Below, I could hear Tabitha discovering her Instagram stories weren't uploading properly. My phone buzzed with a message from Thea. Landing in 2 hours. Ready to drop some more truth bombs? I looked at my family below. My mother pretending everything was fine. My sister frantically trying to salvage her content plans, both of them finally experiencing consequences. More than ready, I typed back. Time to burn the whole facade down. Because I was done being the family mouse. It was time to roar. The villa's atmosphere crackled with tension as I keyed in the new Wi-Fi password, locking Tabitha and Sasha out of their precious streaming capabilities. A small revenge, but watching them frantically reset their phones brought me a peculiar joy. This is ridiculous. Tabitha paced the living room. I have content deadlines. Tragic, I replied, just as the front door chimed. Thea walked in, designer suitcase rolling behind her, looking exactly like the high-powered attorney she was. Hope I'm not interrupting family drama? Thea? Mom stood up sharply. What are you doing here? I invited her, I said. Member privileges and all that. But this is a family trip. Exactly. And Thea's more family than some people in this room. Tabitha's face darkened. If this is about Eric... Oh, it's about so much more than Eric, Thea cut in, her courtroom voice making everyone flinch. Should we discuss the trust fund Hannah never knew about? Mom went pale. How did you... I'm a lawyer, Mrs. Cox. Finding buried financial documents is literally my job. I turned to my mother slowly. What trust fund? It's not what you think. Dad left us both trust funds, Tabitha blurted out. But Mom said you'd just waste yours on your little planning business, so... So, you stole it, I finished. My own mother stole my inheritance. Protected it, Mom protested. You were too young. I was 25. The pieces clicked together. That's why you discouraged me from starting my company. Why you kept pushing me to take that banking job. You were hiding the money. We were investing it wisely, Mom said primly. For your future. In Tabitha's influencer career, Thea added. Very wise investment. Sasha, who'd been quietly filming everything, whistled low. This is better than any reality show. Hannah, Tabitha stepped forward. You have to understand. I understand perfectly. Every time you called my business cute, every time you treated me like staff, you were using my own money to do it. I pulled out my phone and opened the resort app. A few quick taps and... What happened to the lights? Mom demanded as the villa dimmed. Member services reduced to basic level, I said. No more premium utilities, no more concierge access, no more room service. You can't do this! Actually, I can. Just like I can cancel tomorrow's wine tasting. And the spa treatments. And... Enough! Mom shouted. You're just like your father. Petty, jealous, always trying to buy love. The room went silent. What did you just say? I asked quietly. Your father, she spat. Always throwing money around, thinking it could fix everything. That's why I left him. That's why I had to protect the trust fund. You're turning into him. Good, I said, surprising everyone. Because Dad was the only one who ever saw me. Really saw me. No wonder you had to drive him away. I didn't. The gaslighting stops now, Thea interrupted. Hannah has copies of everything. The trust documents, the transfer records, even those lovely group chat screenshots about the house mouse. Would you like to see how that plays out in court? Mom sank onto the couch. Tabitha started to cry. Not genuine tears, I noticed, but the pretty kind she used for Instagram. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to transfer my trust fund back to me, with interest. Every penny. Or Thea here will make your financial manipulations very, very public. You wouldn't dare, Mom whispered. We're family. Family? I laughed. Family doesn't steal inheritances. Family doesn't help their daughter steal their other daughter's boyfriend. Family doesn't create chat groups to mock their own child. The villa's chef chose that moment to appear. Ms. Hannah, dinner is ready to be served. Thank you, Antoine. Please set an extra place for my friend Thea. Of course. And for the others? I looked at my mother and sister, these women who had shaped my insecurities for so long. They can order delivery. I hear the pizza place in town is decent. This is insane, Tabitha protested. You can't just... I can. I am. And tomorrow you're both going to sit down with Thea and sign whatever documents she puts in front of you. Or this little vacation drama becomes headline news. You're bluffing, Mom said weakly. Sasha finally spoke up. She's not. My followers would go crazy for this story, and I have it all on video. I stood up, straightening my basic sundress. Dinner's at 7. Thea, shall we? As we walked to the dining room, leaving them in their dimmed luxury prison, Thea squeezed my arm. You okay? I thought about all the years of feeling small, of being the family mouse. You know what? For the first time in my life, I actually am. Behind us, I could hear Tabitha discovering that room service wouldn't accept her calls. Sometimes karma needed a little help, and I was more than happy to assist. The storm rolled in just as we gathered in the villa's study for the final confrontation. Thunder punctuated the silence as Thea laid out the documents on the mahogany desk. It's quite simple, Thea explained, her lawyer voice crisp and clear. Sign here to return Hannah's trust fund with accumulated interest, and here to acknowledge the financial misconduct. Mom's hand shook as she held the pen. This will ruin us. No, I corrected. This will make things fair. Finally. I can't believe you're doing this to your own family, Tabitha sniffled, her mascara artfully smudged. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done to me, I cut in. Let's be specific. Shall we list it all? Sasha, are you recording? Rolling, Sasha confirmed from her corner. Don't you dare, Mom started. Age 12, left at home during the family vacation because someone needed to watch the house. That was age 16. Told all my friends I was the hired help at my own birthday party. We were joking. Age 22. Helped my sister seduce my boyfriend while consoling me about our relationship problems. Tabitha at least had the grace to look ashamed. Age 25. Stole my inheritance because you decided I wasn't worthy of it. We were protecting you, Mom exploded. You were always so what? So ordinary. While Tabitha shone, you just existed. We had to make sure the money went somewhere useful. The room fell silent except for Sasha's quiet holy shit and the sound of her camera focusing. Ordinary, I repeated. The daughter who graduated summa cum laude, who built a 7-figure business from scratch, who planned every family event, managed every crisis, and kept every secret. That daughter? Lightning flashed, illuminating everyone's faces. Sign the papers, I said quietly. Or tomorrow, Sasha releases the footage of this conversation, Thea files the lawsuit, and every carefully curated social media lie comes crashing down. You wouldn't, Tabitha whispered. Try me. Mom's pen scratched across the paper. Tabitha followed suit, her signature as shaky as her breathing. There's one more thing, Thea said, pulling out another document. This is a formal acknowledgement of the emotional abuse and manipulation. Sign it. Abuse? Mom laughed hysterically. We gave you everything. Except love, I said. Except respect. Except a place at the table that wasn't behind a serving tray. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is spending my entire life trying to earn the love that you gave Tabitha freely. What's not fair is discovering that while I was building my business, you were using my own money to fund her Instagram career. Thunder crashed again. Sign it, Thea repeated. Or we go public. They signed. Perfect. Thea gathered the papers. These will be filed first thing tomorrow. So that's it? Tabitha stood up. You've gotten your revenge. Happy now? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and practiced pout, I saw something new. Fear. Fear of losing her carefully constructed image. Fear of facing real consequences. This isn't revenge, I said. This is consequences. For the first time in your life, you're facing them. What happens now? Mom's voice was small. Now? You have 2 choices. You can stay here for the remaining 2 days, following my rules, treating me like an actual family member. Or you can check into the hotel in town. Your decision. They exchanged looks. That familiar silent communication that had excluded me for years. But this time, I didn't feel left out. I felt free. We'll stay, Mom finally said. Fine, but understand this. The old dynamic is dead. No more house mouse. No more treating me like staff. No more pretending I don't exist unless you need something. Sasha lowered her camera. This is going to change everything, you know. Once people see how they treated you, their carefully curated social media empire might crumble. I smiled. That's not my problem. Hannah, Tabitha tried one last time. We're still family. No, I corrected her. We're still related. Family is something you earn, and you've got a lot of earning to do. As if on cue, the storm began to ease. Through the window, I could see the clouds breaking, revealing stars. The car will be here in 10 minutes to take us to dinner, I announced. I suggest you fix your makeup, Tabitha. Wouldn't want your followers to see you looking ordinary. She flinched at her own word thrown back at her. As they filed out, Thea squeezed my hand. You okay? I looked around the room where I'd finally claimed my power, where years of pain had transformed into strength. The most luxurious thing I bought this week, I said, was my self-worth. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly rich. The last morning at the villa dawned clear and bright. I sat on my private balcony, watching the staff load luggage into separate cars. One for me and Thea, another for my mother and sister. Your coffee, Ms. Hannah, Marco said, setting down my final breakfast. Will you be returning to us soon? Already booked for Christmas, I smiled. Just for myself this time. My phone buzzed with a notification. Sasha had posted the first part of her Family, Fame, and Facade series. The view count was already astronomical. Hannah? Mom's voice came from the doorway. She looked smaller somehow, less polished. May we speak with you? I gestured to the empty chairs. She and Tabitha sat down, both unusually subdued. Sasha's video, Tabitha started, is truth, I finished. Pure and simple. It's destroying everything we built, she whispered. My followers are unfollowing. Brands are canceling contracts. Funny how karma works. Please, Mom leaned forward. We can fix this. Take it down. We'll do better, we promise. I stirred my coffee slowly. You know what I realized this week? You two aren't actually good at anything except appearances. Every real achievement in this family, every event, every crisis managed, every actual success, that was all me. That's not... Mom stopped as Tabitha touched her arm. She's right, Tabitha said quietly. I've never actually built anything. I just took pretty pictures and took credit for other people's work. Mostly yours. Recognition. Finally. I set down my cup. But it's too late. It doesn't have to be, Mom pleaded. We can start over. No, we can't, because you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. A new notification popped up on my phone. A message from Dad. Saw Sasha's video. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. Call me? I showed them the message. Mom's face tightened. Your father always encouraged your independence. You mean he saw me as a person, not an accessory? Tabitha started crying. Real tears this time, not the Instagram kind. I don't know who I am without the facade. That's not my problem to fix, I said, but gently. Maybe it's time you built something real of your own. And what about me? Mom asked. Am I just supposed to accept losing both my daughters? You never really had us, Mom. You had a star and a servant. Neither of those was real. The staff appeared to announce the cars were ready. We stood up, this broken little family of pretenders. I'm keeping the house mouse chat screenshots, I said as we walked downstairs. Consider them insurance. And us? Tabitha asked. What are we now? DNA matches. Anything beyond that has to be earned. With time, with respect, with genuine change. In the driveway, Thea waited by our car while Sasha filmed one final scene from hers. Ready to go? Thea asked. Almost. I turned to my mother and sister one last time. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore. That's probably worse, isn't it? They didn't answer. They didn't have to. Goodbye, Mom. Tabitha, enjoy flying commercial. As our car pulled away, I watched them in the rearview mirror. Two perfectly styled women whose perfect world had just crumbled. Not with a bang, but with the quiet click of a camera and the truth it revealed. You okay? Thea asked. Look, I showed her my phone. The resort's booking confirmation for Christmas glowed on the screen. Front row, on my terms. Speaking of terms, she grinned, your trust fund transfer cleared this morning. 7 figures of freedom. I rolled down the window, letting the Caribbean air wash over me. You know what the best revenge is? What? Living well, and making sure they have to watch from the cheap seats. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Dad. Having dinner in New York next week. Join me? Yes, I typed back. I'm done sitting at the kids' table. Sasha's video hit 1 million views as we reached the airport. The comments were flooding in. Finally, someone exposed these fake influencer families. Team Hannah forever. This is what real strength looks like. I posted my first and only comment on the video. Maybe karma just needed a planner. Then I turned off my phone, leaned back in my first-class seat, and smiled. Let them scramble to rebuild their paper castle of likes and followers. I had something better. I had myself. Front and center. No filter needed. And that was worth every penny of the $42,000 I spent to learn it.
Hi, I'm Jessica. You'd think being the CEO of a successful tech company would make my in-laws proud. Instead, it became their mission to protect their precious son's reputation. Let me tell you how I discovered just how toxic success can be, especially when it threatens fragile egos. And not just any egos, those of your husband's parents. You're working late again. Calvin's voice carried that sharp edge I'd noticed creeping in lately. My husband stood in the doorway of my home office, arms crossed, already dressed for bed. Just wrapping up the quarterly projections. The board meeting's tomorrow, I replied, keeping my focus on the screen. Mom and Dad invited us to dinner this weekend. They're concerned about us. I sighed, already sensing where this was going. Last month's Forbes feature on my company's innovative AI solutions had stirred another wave of their so-called concerns. Tia just sent over the PR strategy for next month's product launch. Want to take a look? I asked, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. Jessica, it's family. That dinner. I should have known it would mark the beginning of everything unraveling and coming back together in ways I never expected. Your success is admirable, my mother-in-law Margaret said as she delicately sliced her steak. Her tone dripped with the kind of politeness that only served to mask disdain. But surely, now that the company's stable, you might consider a position better suited to. To what, Margaret? She barely concealed her smirk. Family life, dear. Calvin needs a wife, not a business partner. I felt Calvin stiffen beside me, but as always, he said nothing. Standing up to his parents had never been his strength. Thank goodness for Aaron. My best friend since law school had warned me about Margaret's latest moves. Over coffee that morning, she'd said, "They're consulting corporate lawyers, Jessica. They're looking for ways to push you out. Something about traditional family values." I brushed it off, naive enough to think Calvin would never allow it. "Are you sure about that?" Erin had asked, her voice heavy with skepticism. Now, as I sat through dinner, her warning echoed in my mind. My phone buzzed under the table. "Tia, board member chatter. Your in-laws are making moves. Call me ASAP." Margaret's satisfied expression told me she thought she had all the power. Her country club connections and old money influence might make her formidable, but she had no idea who she was up against. "More wine, dear?" Margaret's syrupy voice was laced with venom. "No thanks, I have an early meeting." I stood pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. "Calvin, are you coming?" His hesitation spoke volumes. I didn't wait for an answer. Walking to the car, I texted Erin. "You were right, time to play hardball." Her reply came instantly, "Already on it. Bring evidence tomorrow." The whispers had started small, concerned glances at charity galas, subtle remarks about work-life balance. But now it was escalating. They're systematically contacting every major stakeholder. Ariel, the only other female board member, explained over lunch. Margaret's hosting private dinners to paint you as a threat to traditional family values. This goes deeper than we thought. Scott, an investigative journalist I'd helped years ago, slid a folder across the table. Your in-laws have ties to 3 board members' wives, all part of the same country club committee. Tia grabbed the folder, her PR instincts kicking in. They're building a narrative. The career-obsessed wife destroying their son's masculinity. Classic manipulation. My phone buzzed again. "Calvin, Mom says you haven't RSVP'd for their anniversary gala." I stared at the screen, rage simmering. "Me, I'm running a company, Calvin. Your mother's party isn't my priority." His reply came swiftly. "This is what they're talking about, Jessica. You never make time for family anymore." Hands trembling, I hung up when had my ambitious, supportive husband turned into his parents' puppet. "They got their hooks in him," Erin muttered as she reviewed the evidence Scott had gathered. "But they made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" "They put everything in writing. Emails, texts, meeting minutes from their precious country club. They were so confident, they got sloppy." That evening, I found Calvin in his study, looking troubled. "The company's stock dropped 2 points today," he said, his tone uneasy. "Rumors are spreading, and maybe they have a point." I froze. "What does that mean?" "Victoria. Dad says a wife should," he faltered. "Should what?" I snapped. "Know her place?" His silence felt like a slap. "Tell me, Calvin, did you marry me because you wanted a trophy or because you loved who I am?" He didn't answer, My phone lit up with a message from Ariel. Emergency board meeting called for next week. They're making their move. I forwarded it to Erin, adding, time for plan B. Her reply came instantly, already in motion. Meet tomorrow at 7. Bringing Scott and the evidence. Later that night, lying awake in bed, I heard Calvin on the phone in the hallway. Yes, mother, I understand. No, she doesn't suspect anything. I shut my eyes, remembering our wedding day and the vows he'd made to stand by me through everything. Now he was standing with them, plotting my downfall. They wanted a war. They'd learned the hard way that taking down a CEO required more than country club gossip and a spineless husband. The next morning, Scott spread a stack of photos across my office table. Every so-called protest outside your office, paid actors, he explained. Here are the invoices. Margaret's assistant accidentally sent them to her personal email instead of her burner account. Tia whistled. Amateur hour. I've got social media evidence too. Every viral post about toxic female CEOs destroying families, all traced back to accounts tied to Margaret's social circle. Erin leaned forward, holding up her tablet. And here's the real smoking gun. Remember the harassment complaint from last month? Margaret wrote it herself. She used her country club friend's daughter's name without permission. The girl's furious and ready to testify. Not only is that unethical, I said, flipping through the documents, it's a major legal liability. It gets better, Scott added, sliding another folder forward. They hired private investigators to follow you. Paid for with your brother-in-law's company credit card. Not very subtle. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Calvin stood there, red-faced. You're investigating my mother? No, I said evenly. I'm investigating the people trying to destroy my company. The fact that your mother's behind it is her choice, not mine. She's just trying to protect our marriage. By committing fraud? By paying protesters? That's not protection. Calvin, that's persecution. Your mother hired people to stalk me. You're twisting everything, he shouted. Mom says. Mom says? I interrupted. When did you stop thinking for yourself, Calvin? When did her opinion become more important than our marriage? The silence between us felt like glass about to shatter. I can't do this anymore, he said, his voice cracking. They're right. This isn't what I signed up for. A wife should support her husband, not overshadow him. I stared at him, my voice calm but steely. If you think my ambition is overshadowing you, Calvin, that's your problem, not mine. Ariel appeared in the doorway. Emergency board meeting's been moved up to tomorrow morning, she announced, and 3 more board members want to meet privately beforehand. Perfect timing, I said, standing. Calvin, since you're so concerned about supporting spouses, you should know your mother's little campaign has an interesting side effect. Turns out, your brother's investment firm is losing major clients. They don't appreciate learning their money manager's family orchestrates smear campaigns. 2 clients have already withdrawn their portfolios. What are you saying? What have you done? He asked, his voice shaking. I didn't do anything. Your parents destroyed their own reputations. Funny how that works. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The next morning, the boardroom was silent as I placed evidence folders in front of each member. Margaret sat at the far end, her usual smug smile cracking under the pressure. My father-in-law gripped his armrest, his knuckles white. Calvin hadn't shown up, likely hiding at his parents' house. Before we discuss my supposed family values problem, I began, let's review some interesting financial transactions. Scott connected his laptop to the projector. Public protests require permits. These didn't have any because they were staged. Here are the invoices, traced directly to accounts managed by Margaret Winchester. Margaret's composure faltered. Those documents are fabricated, she said stiffly. Like the harassment complaint you fabricated? Erin cut in, sliding forward a notarized statement. Miss Sarah Chen would like to know why you used her name without permission. She's particularly interested in pursuing legal action, Ariel said, her voice cutting through the tense silence. Charles shot to his feet, his face flushed. This is absurd. We were protecting our son. By committing fraud? Ariel countered, her tone sharp. And by manipulating stock prices through deliberate disinformation. I imagine the SEC will be very interested in that part. Tia stepped forward, sliding a folder across the table. Here's the data from the social media campaigns. Paid trolls, fake accounts, all traced back to your country club circle. Did you know impersonation for the purpose of market manipulation is a federal crime? You're destroying our family? Margaret shrieked. No, I replied, meeting her glare. You did that when you decided your son's imaginary humiliation was worth sabotaging my career. I leaned forward. Speaking of destruction, how's Thomas's investment firm doing? The mention of their other son's company made both in-laws pale. 3 major clients withdrew their portfolios this morning. I continued, my voice calm but pointed. Apparently they don't trust financial advisors whose families engage in corporate sabotage. Funny how reputation works, isn't it? Charles's voice quivered as he asked, "What do you want?" "Your resignations from all advisory boards," I replied without hesitation. "Public apologies, and a notarized agreement to stay out of my business and my marriage. And if we refuse—" Scott leaned back, a sly smile on his face. "Then my exposa runs tomorrow. Fraud, market manipulation, harassment, complete with evidence. Your choice." The tension in the room was palpable when the door opened and Calvin walked in, looking exhausted. "It's true," he said quietly, his voice heavy. "All of it. I found Mom's burner phone, saw all the messages." "Calvin, dear," Margaret began, her voice softening. "We did it for you." "No," he snapped, cutting her off. "You did it for your reputation. You've always cared more about appearances than happiness." He turned to me, his eyes filled with regret. "Jessica, I'm sorry. I should have stood up to them years ago." I shook my head, my voice calm but resolute. "A bit late for that." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. "The divorce papers are with my lawyer. Your mother finally got her wish, no daughter-in-law to overshadow her precious son." "Jessica, please." I ignored him and addressed the board. "You have the evidence. I trust you'll make the right decision regarding the Winchesters' involvement with this company." I turned and walked out, my head high, as chaos erupted behind me. My phone buzzed as I exited the building. Messages from my team. Aaron, SEC filing ready. Tia, press release drafted. Scott, board votes unanimous. They're out. Ariel, social response overwhelmingly positive. That night, I sat in my office, gazing out at the city lights. My company was safe. The truth was out. The in-laws' reputation was in tatters. And somewhere across town, Calvin was finally learning that actions have consequences. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's ensuring everyone knows why they failed. A deeper conversation. This story explores a difficult question. In a marriage, where should your primary loyalty lie? With your spouse or your parents? Jessica's situation reveals a harsh reality many face. Choosing between personal success and a marriage strained by toxic in-laws. Was Calvin's betrayal worse because he initially supported Jessica's career, or was his family's manipulation so intense that he deserves some understanding? At what point does family pressure cross the line into emotional abuse? If you discovered your in-laws were actively trying to destroy your career, would you give your spouse time to choose sides, as Jessica did, or is that kind of betrayal an immediate deal breaker? What's your breaking point? Share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might help someone facing a similar situation. If you found this story thought-provoking, hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of complex family dynamics. Let's talk about it below, because sometimes the most painful betrayals come from those who promise to stand by us. What would you have done in Jessica's shoes? Hi, I'm Anna. You know how they say wedding planning brings out the worst in people? Well, let me tell you about the day I discovered just how far my own mother would go to sabotage my happiness. Not that I was completely shocked. Mom has always had a strange obsession with making my younger sister, Mia, the center of attention. But burning my wedding dress? That was a new low, even for her. Let me back up a bit. I was engaged to the most amazing guy, James, and together we were planning our dream wedding. Everything was falling into place. My best friend Ashley was my rock, total maid of honor material, and James's mom, Diana, was an absolute angel who treated me like her own daughter. My own mother, Helen, on the other hand, well, she had her own priorities, as you're about to see. "Have you seen how your sister's been moping around?" Mom asked, cornering me during a cake tasting. "She just broke up with her boyfriend, and all this wedding stuff is making her feel worse." I sighed. Mom, I'm sorry Mia's hurting, but this is my wedding. You've always been so selfish, Anna, she snapped. Would it kill you to let your sister feel more involved? More involved? Mia was already a bridesmaid, even though she'd skipped half the fittings and complained about the dress color not suiting her model complexion. Yes, she'd done some catalog work years ago, and no, she never let anyone forget it. Still, I brushed it off as typical mom drama, until Ashley noticed something odd at my final dress fitting. Hey, she said, lowering her voice. Why does your mom keep taking pictures of the alteration tags? Isn't that weird? I shrugged, chalking it up to overthinking. But then Diana pulled me aside at the rehearsal venue. Helen called the coordinator, she said carefully. She's trying to move Mia to the head table, in your spot. That should have been my wake-up call. But nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered 3 nights before the wedding. I couldn't sleep, stressed about last-minute details, so I decided to swing by my parents' house to grab my wedding dress. Mom had insisted on storing it there, claiming her climate-controlled closet was better than my apartment. As I pulled into the driveway around midnight, I noticed a flickering light in the backyard. Curious and uneasy, I crept toward the garden gate. That's when I heard her voice. It's handled, Mia, Mom said. That dress was all wrong anyway. Too classic too. Plain. Once it's gone, Anna will have no choice but to wear the one we picked. I peeked through the gate, my heart pounding. There, standing over a metal trash can, was my mother, feeding pieces of delicate white lace into the flames. My wedding dress. The one I'd spent months searching for. The one that brought me to tears of joy when I found it, was now a pile of ashes. Mama's taking care of everything, sweetheart, she continued laughing. When Anna walks in wearing that boring backup dress and you make your grand entrance in the gown we found, trust me, no one will even remember she's the bride. I froze. My mother was destroying my dress while Mia listened on speakerphone, both of them laughing as they plotted to make my wedding into Mia's show. The photographer's already been paid extra to focus on you, Mom added. And with the seating changes and the toast we wrote, this wedding is going to be your moment to shine, darling. It's what you deserve. In that instant, something inside me snapped. The dutiful daughter who always forgave, always kept the peace. She went up in flames with that dress. If they wanted a show, fine, but it wouldn't be the one they were expecting. I didn't wait for dawn. As soon as I got back to my car, I called Ashley and Diana for an emergency meeting. By 1 a.m., we were huddled in Diana's kitchen, my hands still smelling of smoke and betrayal. I have the whole thing on video. My hands trembled as I hit play on the recording. The sound of my mother's voice plotting over the flames filled Diana's kitchen. I started filming the second I saw the fire, I said, my voice shaking. Diana's expression morphed from shock to fierce determination. That's not just cruel, that's criminal. Property destruction, harassment. Her jaw tightened. Wait until you hear what Emma just sent me. Ashley held up her phone. Your wedding planner's been trying to reach you all day. I leaned closer as Ashley opened a series of screenshots. They read like a horror story. Dozens of unauthorized changes to the wedding plans, every single one traced back to Mom's email and phone number. Your mom tried to switch the venue last week. Emma's voice crackled over the speakerphone. When I refused, she threatened to report me to the Better Business Bureau. Then yesterday, Mia called pretending to be you, trying to change the bridesmaid dress order. Classic Mia, I muttered bitterly. Remember my college graduation? She accidentally spilled red wine on my white dress minutes before the ceremony. Mom made me give Mia my backup dress because, and I quote, at least someone should look nice in the photos. Ashley snorted. Or your first art show? Your mom told everyone Mia was the real artist and you were just helping with her vision. Diana scrolled through her phone, her face darkening. Look at this, she said, turning the screen to show us. Mia had been posting hints on Instagram for weeks. Pictures of her in a stunning white designer gown with captions like, preview of the wedding look that's going to steal the show. That's not even the worst of it, Emma said grimly. They've been calling all your vendors, changing delivery dates and orders. I found an email thread. They're having the flowers and decorations sent to your parents' house instead of the venue. They plan to hold everything hostage unless you agree to their terms. The more we uncovered, the worse it got. Guest list additions we'd never approved, reception music swapped out for Mia's modeling playlist, and seating charts completely rearranged. James's family had been relegated to the back while Mia's friends were given prime spots. Then Ashley pulled up a file she recovered from an old phone Mia and I had shared years ago. Dozens of deleted texts. "Look at this," she said. Years of them plotting, undermining, sabotaging, every achievement, every milestone. They were there in the shadows, trying to dim your light. Diana's voice was steel. "We're not letting them get away with this." She turned to Emma. "How quickly can we set up a new venue?" But an idea had already formed in my mind. I looked up, a slow smile spreading across my face. "No," I said. "We're keeping everything exactly as it is. They want to put on a show. Let's give them an audience they'll never forget." Ashley's eyes lit up. "What are you thinking?" "The rehearsal dinner," I said. "Mom and Mia think they've set me up for humiliation. But every change they've made plays right into our hands." The pieces were falling into place. Emma spread the contracts across Diana's dining table. "They think they hold all the power because they've hijacked the vendors and arrangements," she said. "And that's exactly what we'll use against them," I finished. I held up my phone, showing Mom's latest text. "Don't worry, sweetie. I've handled everything with the rehearsal dinner. Just show up and trust me." Ashley smirked. "Oh, she's handled it all right." Emma nodded. "Every unauthorized change, every call, every email, I've documented all of it. The venue's security team is on board, and they'll be monitoring the entrances the second Mia shows up in that white dress." "Speaking of dresses," I said, grinning, "Mom thinks she destroyed my only option. She has no idea Diana and I picked up my real dress weeks ago." Emma gestured to the seating chart. "I kept their version, but with a twist. All the strategic tables are now filled with people who've seen their stunts firsthand. People ready to speak up when things go south." Ashley chimed in, "And my assistant's making sure the tables are mic'd up for the rehearsal dinner. Every word will be caught on tape." "The videographer's been briefed," Diana added. "He'll be capturing everything from multiple angles. This is going to be better than any reality show." Emma leaned forward. "What about the backup dress they picked? The one they think you'll have to wear?" "Oh, that's my favorite part." I pulled up a boutique's website on my phone. "See this dress they chose? The plain one they think will make me look basic? It's actually a knockoff. The photos are stolen from a designer's site. The whole store is a scam, and I've got proof." Ashley laughed. "So when Mia shows up in her white designer dress," I said, a sly grin forming, "she'll be standing right next to proof that Mom bought me a fake." I paused for effect. "And the cherry on top, I've invited a reporter from Fashion Expose, the blog Mia's been dying to get featured on. They just ran a huge expose on counterfeit wedding dresses." The room erupted into quiet laughter, Ashley leaning back in her chair with a satisfied smirk. We ran through the plan one final time. Every detail was in place. The fake seating chart that strategically positioned our witnesses, the accidentally unlocked side door we knew Mom would use to sneak in, the backup cameras hidden in flower arrangements, and the piece de resistance, evidence lined up to blow their scheme wide open. Emma held up a hand, her expression serious. "Remember," she cautioned, "we have to let them think they're in control until the very last moment." I glanced down at the burnt scraps of lace I'd salvaged from Mom's trash can, a pang of emotion washing over me. They destroyed my dream dress, thinking it would break me. Instead, they handed me the perfect way to expose them. "They've been rehearsing this performance their whole lives," I said, standing taller. "It's time to give them the audience they deserve." The rehearsal dinner was packed. Mom had gone overboard, inviting far more people than we'd planned. Perfect. Every single witness we needed was there, from Dad's business partners to Mia's modeling contacts. "Everything's ready, sweetheart," Mom cooed, her smile saccharine as she guided me to a seat tucked away at the back, just as she'd arranged. Right on cue, the lights dimmed. Mom grabbed the microphone, her grin widening. "Before we start, my youngest daughter has a special surprise for everyone." That was our signal. The projector flickered to life, but instead of Mia's planned slideshow, security footage filled the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the first clip played. Mom, standing over the trash can, feeding my wedding dress into the flames. The audio was crystal clear. "It's handled, Mia. That dress was all wrong anyway." The video transitioned seamlessly to phone recordings of their scheming, Mom threatening vendors, Mia laughing about ruining my wedding, and text messages detailing every manipulation and sabotage attempt. What? What is this? Mom stammered, her voice cracking as the footage continued to roll. This? I stood up, holding the charred remnants of my dress for everyone to see. This is your production. You wanted to put on a show, remember? Right on schedule, Mia burst into the room in her white designer gown, the picture of confidence, until her eyes locked on the screen. Her face paled as the crowd turned to stare at her. Helen. Dad's voice sliced through the silence, sharp and demanding. Tell me this isn't real. It was chaos. The reporter from Fashion Exposa was already furiously scribbling notes, her phone camera discreetly recording everything. Emma stepped forward, laying out the documentation. Every altered contract, every fraudulent email, every dirty trick they pulled. Diana presented her trump card, the proof that the boutique where Mom and Mia had purchased my backup dress was a known scam selling counterfeit gowns. And then James stood, his hand firmly on my shoulder. You've done enough damage, he said, his voice steady and resolute. This is over. In that moment, looking around the room, I realized I had everything I needed. My new family, true friends, and the unwavering love of my fiancé. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness. Hi, I'm Sophia Mitchell, a 28-year-old pastry chef who's built her dream bakery from scratch. Life was as sweet as my cakes, until I got engaged to Michael Thompson. That's when everything turned sour, thanks to his mother, Barbara. From the very beginning, Barbara made her presence known. Darling, you really should use less vanilla in your recipes, she said during her first visit to my bakery, as if she were some sort of expert. Customers these days prefer a more sophisticated taste. I was elbow-deep in wedding cake batter at the time, trying to hold back my frustration. Her critique of my award-winning recipe was unwelcome, but I managed a polite smile. Your cakes are lovely, dear, but they lack that special Thompson family touch, she added with a condescending tilt of her head. My recipes have won 3 local baking competitions, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Oh, how cute, she said. I remember when I ran my restaurant, before I sold it, of course. What she didn't mention was that her restaurant hadn't been sold, it had been shut down. I wouldn't learn that little detail until much later. Things escalated when my best friend and business partner, Lisa, rushed into the bakery one afternoon, breathless with gossip. Sophia, you won't believe what Barbara's sister Jennifer just told me. Barbara's been telling everyone at the country club that your bakery uses box mixes. She what? I sputtered. Just ignore her. My brother Tom advised over lunch that week. But as your lawyer, and your brother, I'm telling you, there's something off about that woman. Tom wasn't wrong. Wedding planning turned into a battlefield. The reception must be at the Windsor Hotel, Barbara declared during a planning meeting. But Michael and I already chose the garden venue, I countered. The Windsor has history. Robert, tell her about the history, Barbara snapped, turning to Michael's father. Robert mumbled something incoherent into his coffee cup, looking like he wanted to disappear. The garden venue is perfect for us, Mom, Michael said, though his voice lacked conviction. Then came the cake drama. I was in my kitchen, sketching the design for my dream wedding cake, when Barbara barged in with her sister Jennifer in tow. Here it is, the Thompson family cake recipe, Barbara announced, thrusting a yellowed piece of paper at me. 5 generations of brides have used it. Thank you, Barbara, but I've already designed our cake. But it's tradition, Jennifer chimed in. Every Thompson bride. I'm a professional baker, I interrupted, holding my ground. I'll be making my own wedding cake. Michael won't be pleased, Barbara said, her smile as sharp as a knife. He grew up expecting his bride to honor our traditions. He'll love it, I said firmly. He loves my baking. We'll see about that, won't we? She said, her smile never reaching her eyes. Little did I know, refusing that recipe was just the beginning. Barbara's interference soon took a darker turn, one I never could have imagined. It happened so fast. I felt her hands on my back, and then suddenly I was falling. My body twisted instinctively, trying to protect the wedding cake I was carrying. The stairs felt endless. Pain shot through my wrist like fire, and the world spun wildly around me. The emergency room was a blur of lights and questions. Michael arrived eventually, but instead of concern, his face showed something closer to annoyance. Mom says you were being careless on the stairs, he said. Careless? She pushed me, I cried. Sophia, come on. Mom wouldn't do that. Why would she? Because I wouldn't use her recipe, because I wouldn't let her control everything. You're being dramatic. It was probably just an accident. The doctor interrupted with my diagnosis: a concussion, a sprained wrist, and bruised ribs. The wedding will have to be postponed, I said, fighting back tears. And so my nightmare with Barbara Thompson continued. But this wasn't the end of her attempts to ruin my life. It was only the beginning. But Mom's already called all the guests. Do you know how this makes us look? How it makes you look? Michael's voice grated against my raw nerves as I lay in the hospital bed, bruised and battered. She's worried people will blame her, he added. They should blame her. She pushed me, Michael. He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the one being unreasonable. I think the pain meds are messing with your head. Mom would never. Get out, I snapped, my voice trembling with fury. Get out of my hospital room. Now. He hesitated, looking as though he wanted to argue, but my glare must have convinced him otherwise. As the door slammed shut behind him, Lisa appeared, her face pale but determined. Sophia, she said, holding up her phone. You need to see this. Lisa had been helping set up cameras at the wedding venue. What she'd uncovered made my blood run cold. The security footage showed everything. Barbara Thompson deliberately pushing me down the stairs. Watching the video, my heart broke, not just from the betrayal, but from what it confirmed. Michael, the man I was supposed to marry the next day, would never choose me over his mother's lies. The hospital released me the next morning, but I hadn't even made it home before Michael started blowing up my phone. You need to fix this, he demanded. Mom's devastated that you're accusing her. I'm not discussing this, I replied coldly. We're done. You can't just end things over a misunderstanding. I hung up and called my brother instead. Tom, I need your legal expertise. Already on it, he said. Lisa sent me the security footage. But Sophia, there's more you need to know. At Tom's office, he handed me a thick folder. Barbara Thompson has a history, he said grimly. 3 former employees filed complaints about physical intimidation. All were mysteriously dropped, and the health department didn't shut down her restaurant for basic violations, like she claimed. Lisa chimed in. They shut it down because a waitress was pushed down the kitchen stairs. Sound familiar? Tom clicked through his computer. And get this, your bakery's recent bad reviews? All traced back to IP addresses matching Barbara's home and country club. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, Barbara's sister. Peace meeting at your bakery. Please come. When I arrived, Jennifer paced my office, wringing her hands. You don't understand, Sophia, she began. Barbara just wants what's best for the family business. Family business? I asked, crossing my arms. Well, once you married Michael, she'd naturally take over managing your bakery. You'd be too busy with babies anyway. Jennifer froze, realizing her mistake. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that part. My jaw dropped. She wasn't just trying to ruin me, she was planning to steal my livelihood. Not steal, Jennifer stammered. Just guide. Like she did with that lovely Vietnamese restaurant before yours. They were struggling anyway. What Vietnamese restaurant? I demanded. More digging revealed the truth. The restaurant that used to occupy my bakery's location had been systematically destroyed by Barbara. She'd ruined their reputation, then swooped in to buy the space for pennies. The next day, Lisa led me to a coffee shop where 3 women were waiting. I'm Helen, one said. Barbara was my mother-in-law too. For 6 months. Margaret, said another. She got my catering business blacklisted in 2019. Kim, the third, added. My family owned the Vietnamese restaurant. Story after story poured out. Barbara's pattern was clear. Target successful women-owned businesses, destroy them, then take over. She's been doing this for years, Helen said. But we were all too scared or ashamed to speak up. Not anymore, I said, pulling out my phone. I have security footage, Jennifer's confession, and now your stories. Let's stop her. Kim nodded. Count me in. I kept all the threatening emails. Me too, Margaret added, and photos of the accidents at my venues. Looking around the table at these strong women, I realized something. Barbara had tried to destroy me. Instead, she created an army. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday. The Maxwell Jones wedding. The coordinator began, her voice brimming with excitement. The biggest social event of the season. We want you to cater it. Are you sure? I asked. I heard Barbara Thompson was handling the catering. After what happened at the country club, not a chance. Word had spread fast. The security footage of my fall leaked online, and soon former employees and business owners came forward with their own stories. Lisa burst into the kitchen one day, waving her phone. "Did you see the food critics' review?" she asked, grinning. The headline read, "Rising Phoenix Bakery, Tradition Meets Innovation." Below it was a scathing expose of Barbara's so-called traditional recipes, all stolen from the cooks she bullied. Karma came for Barbara in waves. Jennifer's social circle turned on her, disgusted by her complicity. Barbara's schemes unraveled, and her once untouchable reputation was left in ruins. And me? I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Barbara thought she could destroy me. Instead, she made me unstoppable. Michael's restaurant closed before it even opened. No suppliers were willing to work with the Thompson name. Meanwhile, the sweetest moment of poetic justice came when I catered Jennifer's daughter's high-profile wedding. "The cake is exquisite," the bride gushed. "I can't believe Aunt Barbara tried to stop me from hiring you." "Your aunt isn't causing trouble about being uninvited, is she?" I asked. "Please," he said, rolling her eyes. "After what she did to you and those other women, she's lucky we still acknowledge her at Christmas." Word on the grapevine was that Michael was now working late shifts at a diner. The Thompson family money dried up after Barbara's victims filed lawsuits against her. Last week, I opened my second bakery location, complete with a ribbon-cutting ceremony that made the local news. When a reporter asked me about Barbara, I simply smiled. "I'm focused on the future," I said. "Some people build themselves up by tearing others down. I build myself up by building amazing cakes." As I was cleaning up after the event, my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. "Barbara just got denied membership at her 4th country club this month." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Success is the best revenge, and my success was written in buttercream, validated by awards, and measured in the lines of customers waiting for my innovative takes on traditional recipes. They say living well is the best revenge, but living well while your enemies watch their empire crumble. That's even better. What would you do if your mother-in-law pushed you down the stairs and your fiancé chose to defend her? Would you expose toxic family members, even if it meant destroying their reputation? Or would you quietly walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you'd handle a situation like this. If you enjoyed this story of standing up to toxic family dynamics and serving a dish of well-deserved justice, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me share more real-life tales of resilience and empowerment. My name is Alexandra Chen, and at 32, I shattered expectations to become the youngest vice president of operations at Johnson Corp. Every time I swiped my keycard for access to the executive floor, I felt a surge of pride. That pride kept me grounded, until my carefully constructed world started unraveling. All thanks to my mother-in-law Helen and her whirlwind romance with our 60-year-old CEO. Another stellar quarter, Alex, Tom Johnson had said 3 months ago during my last performance review. His tone had been warm, his admiration genuine. "Your supply chain overhaul saved us millions. You've set a new standard." I'd walked out of that meeting with my head held high, finally silencing the whispers about being too young, too ambitious, too much. Fast forward to now. I'm standing in the same office, but this time, Tom isn't alone. Helen sits beside him, her diamond wedding ring glittering in the morning light. It's the same ring she flashed around at their Vegas wedding last weekend, where my husband Mark and I were barely considered afterthoughts, shoved into the second row. "Alexandra, darling," Helen begins, her syrupy tone barely masking the steel beneath it. It's the same tone she uses at family dinners to disguise her insults as advice. Tom and I have been discussing some organizational updates. My stomach knots, but I maintain a steady expression. Helen's been dropping hints for months, ever since she started dating Tom, about modernizing the company. I just didn't realize her vision of modernization would bulldoze my career. "We're bringing in fresh perspectives," Tom says, though his eyes don't quite meet mine. He looks diminished, like a man who's seated the driver's seat. "Helen has some incredible ideas for the company's future." Before I can respond, the door opens. My sister-in-law Melissa strides in, her designer suit still sporting the tags at her wrist. She's been chronically unemployed since dropping out of her MBA program 2 years ago, spending her time building a lackluster lifestyle blog. Melissa will be joining as co-vice president of operations, Helen declares, smiling at her daughter as though she's just crowned her royalty. We thought it best for her to work closely with you before transitioning to full leadership. Co-vice president. The words are out before I can stop them. Somehow, my voice stays even, masking the turmoil beneath. It's more of a mentorship, Melissa chimes in, plopping into the chair beside me as if it's always been hers. Mom, sorry Helen. Thinks I should shadow you for a while before fully taking over. You've done such a great job laying the groundwork. Taking over completely. The phrase lands like a punch. 5 years of 60-hour weeks, missed holidays, and endless proving of myself. Being handed over to someone whose resume is as empty as her blog's comment section. After all, we're family, Helen cuts in with a pointed smile. And family helps family, don't they? I heard that phrase too many times before. Like when Helen borrowed my house for Melissa's failed jewelry business launch and left me with wine-stained carpets. Or when she suggested I hand over my handbag because Melissa needed it for interviews she never went to. I take a deep breath, forcing my hands to unclench. When does this transition begin? Today. Melissa chirps, pulling out a rose gold laptop like she's about to revolutionize corporate strategy. I already have ideas. The supply chain stuff is so boring. We should focus on social media. Maybe start a company TikTok. Tom flinches slightly, but Helen's hand on his arm silences him. We're counting on you to help Melissa acclimate, she says, her tone making it clear this isn't a request. I rise, smoothing my skirt. If you'll excuse me, I have a supplier meeting in 5 minutes. Perfect. Melissa springs up, trailing me out of the office. I'll come with you. Shadowing starts now. As we walk down the hall, her voice droning on about hashtags and influencers, I catch my reflection in the glass walls. Polished, professional, resilient, the woman I worked so hard to become. But behind me, Helen's smug satisfaction gleams like a victory flag. They think I'll just roll over. They think I'll let them take everything I've built. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The supplier meeting was a disaster. I sat silently, my jaw clenched as Melissa derailed our largest vendor's presentation with questions about their social media aesthetic and whether they considered doing unboxing videos. Mr. Chen, our most reliable supplier and a partner I'd worked with for 3 years to streamline our Asian manufacturing operations, kept throwing me uneasy glances. Perhaps we should return to the key 3 projections, I interjected, trying to salvage the meeting, but Melissa cut me off. Actually, I have a great idea, she chirped, twirling a strand of hair. Why don't we ditch all these big suppliers and move production to those cute little artisans I follow on Instagram? Think of the content. After the meeting, Mr. Chen pulled me aside. Ms. Chen, he said quietly, his face clouded with concern. Is everything all right? These changes seem unusual. I forced a smile, swallowing my frustration. Just a temporary adjustment. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Back in my office, now a shared space thanks to Melissa, I found her perched at the conference table, which was now decorated with a massive rose gold Boss Babe sign. I resisted the urge to throw it out the window and instead started documenting everything. Every unprofessional comment, every botched decision, every potential policy violation. Alexandra, Melissa burst in, waving her phone excitedly. Mom just texted, we're having a special executive dinner tonight at La Maison. Tom's announcing my promotion to the board. My stomach dropped. Promotion? You've been here for 1 day. Well, yeah, she said, as though it were obvious. But Mom says I'm ready for more responsibility. This operation stuff is super basic anyway. Anyone could do it. I thought of the years I'd spent getting my MBA while working full-time, the sleepless nights spent fine-tuning supply chain models, and the painstaking relationships I'd built with our suppliers. That evening, I walked into La Maison to find the executive team gathered around Helen, who sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court. Tom was beside her, his discomfort visible in the tight set of his jaw. Alexandra, darling, Helen called out, her voice dripping with condescension. We were just talking about Melissa's brilliant idea to restructure our supply chain. Isn't she remarkable? I kept my tone even. Restructure? I wasn't aware of any plans to restructure. Oh, don't worry about it, Melissa said breezily, waving a hand. I've got it all figured out. We'll cancel those boring overseas contracts and work with local influencers instead. Imagine the Instagram engagement. Those contracts account for millions in inventory and binding legal obligations. Pointed out. Breaking them could bankrupt the company. Helen's smile tightened. Now, Alexandra, don't be difficult. Melissa's ideas are fresh and forward-thinking. Sometimes the old ways need to change. I noticed a few board members exchanging worried glances. At least not everyone had been fully won over by Helen's charm offensive. Later that night, I found an email from David, our CFO. Can we meet privately? Concerns about recent developments. The next morning, I met David in the corporate gym, one of the few places I knew Helen and Melissa would never set foot. This is bad, Alex, he said, wiping sweat from his brow between sets. Helen's already pushed through changes without board approval. Melissa's overseeing 3 major accounts, and today's trading numbers look troubling. I showed him my growing stack of documentation. This isn't just about me anymore. They're jeopardizing the company's future. Keep gathering evidence, David advised. But watch your back. Sarah from legal tried to push back on the contract violations. She was fired this morning. Back in my office, I heard Melissa on a conference call with our biggest client. Oh no, we're completely changing direction, she said, her voice oozing confidence. Alexandra's outdated strategies are out. We're going for a younger, millennial-friendly vibe now. I froze as I watched our stock price drop 3% in real time. When I tried to intervene, Helen appeared, as though summoned by my frustration. Alexandra, dear, she said, her voice steely beneath her smile. Melissa needs room to grow. Why don't you take a few days off? Paid vacation, of course. Moments later, security was escorting me out. Apparently, Helen's idea of a vacation also involved revoking my building access. As I sat in my car, staring at my cracked phone screen, a message from Mark popped up. Mom says you're causing problems at work. Why can't you just support Melissa? I gripped the phone so tightly it cracked further. Fine. They wanted me out of the way. They thought I'd just roll over and let them destroy everything I built. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I had 3 days to save my company, and I knew exactly where to start. From my home office, I launched my counterattack. First, I emailed the board members every piece of documentation I collected, screenshots of Melissa's disastrous client calls, charts showing the stock price plummeting, and projections of the catastrophic losses her decisions would cause. Then I called Mr. Chen. The rumors are true, I confirmed. They're planning to break our contracts. But I have a proposition for you. The next day, while I was supposedly on vacation, Mr. Chen exercised his right as our largest supplier to request an emergency board meeting. Helen couldn't block it. I was in the room, but David kept me updated via text. Chen is showing them everything. Projected losses from broken contracts, $50 million. Stock price down 7% since Melissa started. 3 major clients threatening to leave. A few minutes later, Helen trying to dismiss concerns. Board not buying it. Tom finally speaking up. Then, emergency executive session called. Get ready. My phone rang. It was Tom. Alexandra. He sounded older, more tired than I ever heard him. Can you come in? Now? I smiled despite myself. I thought I was on vacation. Security will let you up, he said quietly. Please hurry. Walking into the boardroom felt like stepping into a battlefield after the dust had settled. Helen's face was flushed with rage, Melissa was sobbing, and the board members sat stone-faced around the table. How dare you go behind our backs? Helen spat as soon as she saw me. But Tom raised his hand, cutting her off. Enough, Helen. His voice carried a weight I hadn't heard in years. The board has voted. Your position as president is terminated, effective immediately. You can't do this, Helen shrieked. I'm your wife. And I was a fool to let that cloud my judgment, Tom said evenly. Then he turned to me. Alexandra, the board would like to reinstate you as vice president of operations, with additional oversight of strategic planning. That is, if you're willing. Before I could respond, Melissa leaped to her feet. This isn't fair. I had plans. I was going to make us viral on TikTok. Your plans nearly destroyed this company, one board member snapped. We've lost millions in market value in just 3 days. But I'm family, Melissa wailed. No, I said firmly, my voice cutting through the tension. You're not. Family doesn't try to destroy what others have built. Family doesn't use relationships as weapons. And family certainly doesn't value social media clout over people's livelihoods. I turned back to Tom. I'll accept the position on 2 conditions. First, a full audit of all decisions made during Helen's tenure as president. Second, a new nepotism policy to ensure this never happens again. Agreed, Tom said without hesitation. Then he looked at Helen. And Helen, we need to discuss our personal situation as well. As security escorted Helen and Melissa out, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. Alex, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what Mom was doing. Can we talk? I didn't reply, not yet. Later that evening, I sat in my restored office, reading the company-wide email announcing the leadership changes. My name was listed, along with my new title. But this wasn't about titles anymore. It was about standing up to those who thought they could bulldoze their way through my hard work, who mistook nepotism for loyalty. A message popped up from Mr. Chen. Glad to have you back, Ms. Chen. Let's discuss that expansion plan you proposed last month. I looked out the window at the city skyline, reflecting on everything that had happened. About power, family, and the true meaning of loyalty. Helen and Melissa had tried to weaponize family ties against me, but they'd forgotten something crucial. Real success isn't inherited, manipulated, or stolen. It's earned. The stock rebounded the next day, jumping 10% on news of the leadership changes. I had my team back, my position back, and most importantly, my dignity. As for Helen and Melissa, last I heard, they were planning to start a mother-daughter influencer account. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding so spectacularly that those who tried to tear you down are forced to watch from the sidelines powerless. The next time someone tells me, family helps family, I'll remember this. Real family lifts each other up. They don't tear each other down. And sometimes the most professional response to unprofessional behavior is simply being better than they ever thought you could be. Hi, I'm Emily Parker, and last Tuesday, I found my entire life packed into boxes sitting on my front porch. It's only temporary, my mother-in-law, Margaret, had said, her tone dripping with condescension. Sarah needs a proper home for the baby. But I knew better. This was no temporary arrangement. The boxes were stacked neatly, each one labeled with Margaret's meticulous handwriting. Kitchen, clothes, personal items. 5 years of memories reduced to categories and set outside like yesterday's trash. My hand trembled as I reached for my favorite coffee mug, poorly wrapped in crumpled newspaper. Emily, don't make this harder than it has to be, Margaret said, leaning casually against the doorframe. Her arms were crossed, her expression firm. Behind her stood Sarah, my sister-in-law, with one hand resting on her barely there baby bump and the other tucked protectively over her chest. Her wide, innocent eyes held the practiced look of someone who always got her way. This is my house, I said, my voice shaking but steady enough. Daniel and I bought it together. We built this life together. Memories of painting walls, assembling furniture, and dreaming about our future flooded my mind. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin, tight smile. Sarah's pregnancy is high risk, she explained as if I hadn't already heard it 100 times. She needs to be near family, and this house is ideal for her. Single story, spacious, close to the hospital. You and Daniel can manage in the rental property for a little while. The rental property? I asked, my voice rising. You mean that dilapidated duplex across town? Margaret had spent years lamenting how much of a money pit it was. It's been fixed up, Sarah chimed in, her voice sticky sweet. Mom's had contractors there all week. It's cozy. Cozy. The word hit like a slap. I could barely contain my disbelief. 3 months ago, when Sarah had announced her pregnancy at a family dinner, Margaret's eyes lit up like it was the second coming. Since then, she'd used every excuse to center the world around Sarah and her unborn child. Where's Daniel? I demanded, peering past them into the house. My house, where movers bustled about, carrying in Sarah's furniture. Through the open door, I saw the coral nursery set she'd been gushing over just last week being hauled upstairs. He's at work, Margaret replied smoothly, not meeting my highs. He agrees this is for the best. Sarah's condition. Stop, I cut in, my patience wearing thin. Sarah's condition is a normal pregnancy. I'm a labor and delivery nurse, Margaret. I know what high risk looks like. Sarah's face clouded briefly before she burst into tears, right on cue. Margaret immediately wrapped her arms around her. Emily, she hissed. Do you see what you've done? The doctor said she can't handle stress like this. I pulled out my phone, dialing Daniel's number. Straight to voicemail. Twice. 3 times. Margaret crossed her arms again, her smile growing smug. He's in meetings all day, she said. Emily, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's only for a few months. But I wasn't naive. This wasn't temporary. The way Sarah was directing the movers, the pristine designer nursery being assembled upstairs, it was all too deliberate. This had been planned, likely for weeks, while I worked back-to-back hospital shifts. I'll call a lawyer, I said, the words spilling out before I could think twice. Margaret's laugh was sharp and cold. And who will you hire? Stanley Adams? The Parker family lawyer for 30 years? Or someone else in town who knows better than to cross us? She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a hiss. You're out of your league, Emily. Accept this gracefully or make it worse for yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Mom explained everything. It's best for the baby. The duplex is fine for now. Please don't make this difficult. For now. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. 5 years of love, sacrifice, and loyalty reduced to a text message and a pile of boxes. The movers will take your things to the duplex, Margaret said, already turning back toward the house. The keys and address are on that box. We need you out by tonight. Sarah needs her rest. I stood frozen as they disappeared inside, Margaret's voice blending with Sarah's as they discussed furniture arrangements. Through the window, I saw Sarah running her fingers along the kitchen counters Daniel and I had scrimped and saved to install. For a moment, the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But as I loaded the first box into my car, my wedding ring caught the light, and something inside me shifted. Margaret thought she'd won, but she underestimated me. I wasn't the same timid girl who married into the Parker family 5 years ago. I had my own resources, my own plans, and nothing left to lose. I glanced back at the house, now alive with workers transforming it into Sarah's new sanctuary. Game on, I whispered under my breath, gripping the steering wheel. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The duplex was just as I expected, cramped, dingy, and reeking of mildew. Margaret's so-called fixes consisted of a slapdash paint job and mismatched furniture that looked like it had been scavenged from a garage sale. The wallpaper in the bedroom was peeling, revealing water stains underneath. I sank onto the lumpy couch, scrolling through my phone's photo gallery. Each picture felt like a gut punch. 5 years of memories in that house, now overshadowed by the image of Sarah, undoubtedly repainting my kitchen in the sage green she wouldn't stop talking about. A sharp knock interrupted my thoughts. Emily? It's Helen from next door. I opened the door to see my colleague from a hospital. Her brow furrowed, concern etched across her face. I saw you moving in, she said. Isn't this the Parkers' infamous rental property? I nodded, inviting her in. Before I could stop myself, the whole story spilled out. Between sobs, I recounted everything. The packed boxes, the eviction, the smug smiles. Helen's expression darkened as she listened. Emily, she said carefully, there's something you should know. Sarah was at the hospital yesterday for her checkup. I wasn't supposed to be near the records desk, but I overheard her talking to Dr. Martinez. She's not high risk at all. In fact, the doctor said she's having one of the easiest pregnancies she's seen in years. I froze, my hands clenching into fists. I knew it, but Daniel won't listen. He's completely under their control. Helen hesitated. There's more. Last week, I overheard Sarah asking about property laws. Specifically, about how long someone needs to live in a house to establish it as their primary residence. The pieces snapped together like a cruel puzzle. This wasn't temporary. Margaret and Sarah weren't just trying to push me out. They were plotting to take my home. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a group text from Margaret. Dinner at our house tonight. Mandatory family meeting to discuss the new living arrangements. Emily, please dress appropriately this time. I considered skipping it, but then I remembered the folder hidden in my office desk. The one Margaret and Sarah didn't find when they'd packed up my life. "I'll be there," I texted back. That evening, I arrived at the Parker mansion wearing my sharpest black dress and a cold, unyielding smile. Through the window, I saw Sarah curled up in my favorite armchair, the one I brought from my parents' house. Now it sat smugly in Margaret's pristine living room. "Emily, so good of you to join us," Margaret said as she opened the door, her eyes narrowing at my outfit. Inside, Daniel sat stiffly beside Sarah, who was dramatically cradling her barely visible bump. "The duplex is cozy," I said lightly, echoing Sarah's earlier jab. "Though I did have an interesting chat with a housing inspector today." Margaret stiffened. "Housing inspector?" "Yes," I replied, letting the moment stretch. "They're very concerned about the black mold behind the bathroom walls. And the electrical issues. Did you know it's illegal to rent out a property in that condition?" Margaret's composure faltered, her smile freezing in place. "You called the housing authorities?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. "Actually, they called me. Turns out someone filed a complaint months ago, but it was misplaced. Until today, I pulled out my phone, displaying the email. They'll be conducting a full inspection next week." Sarah shot to her feet, her polished mask slipping. "Mom, you promised that place was fixed. I can't have my sister-in-law living in a moldy duplex. Think of how it would look to my blog followers." Ah, her blog. Sarah's carefully curated online image, the one thing she truly cared about. "Oh, don't worry," I said sweetly. "I've already shared my situation on several local community forums. The response has been overwhelming. People are so concerned about a pregnant woman forcing her brother's wife into hazardous housing." Sarah's jaw dropped and she grabbed her phone, frantically checking her follower count. "Take it down," Margaret barked. "This is a private family matter." "Like how you privately packed up my house?" I shot back. "Or how you privately told the neighbors I abandoned my home out of jealousy." I stood, my voice cold and steady. "By the way, I found my folder. The one from my office desk." Daniel's head snapped up. "What folder?" "The one with the property deed," I said, locking eyes with him. "The one that shows I'm the primary owner of the house. My inheritance paid for 70% of the down payment. Legally, the house is mine." The room fell silent. Margaret's face turned a mottled shade of purple, and Sarah's phone slipped from her hand. "That's not possible," Margaret stammered. "Daniel told us he paid for everything." "Did he?" I turned to my husband, my voice sharp as a knife. "Tell them, Daniel. Tell them how my grandmother's money made this possible. Tell them how you promised it would always be our home." Daniel's face crumbled, his guilt written plainly across it. I didn't think." "No, you didn't think. None of you did." I placed a stack of papers on the table. "My lawyer, not Stanley Adams, but someone from the city, will be serving you with official papers tomorrow. I want my house back within 48 hours, or we can let a judge decide." I turned to Sarah, whose carefully constructed facade had shattered completely. "And Sarah?" "My lawyer is very interested in your searches about residency laws. Attempted property fraud carries significant consequences." I smoothed my dress, the picture of calm. "I'll see myself out. Oh, and Margaret, the housing inspector wants to speak to you about the rent you've been collecting on that duplex. Apparently, you haven't reported that income for years." As I walked to my car, the voices behind me erupted into chaos. Sarah's shrieks, Margaret's frantic demands, and Daniel's desperate attempts to explain. But I didn't look back. They thought they could erase me, replace me, cast me aside. They were wrong. The next 48 hours were a war of attrition. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages. Margaret sent threats wrapped in fox politeness. Sarah tried her hand at tearful guilt trips, and Daniel alternated between desperate apologies and weak defenses. I ignored them all, forwarding every message to my lawyer. But on Wednesday morning, there was a knock at my door. "Emily, can we talk?" It was Robert, my father-in-law, looking older and more exhausted than I had ever seen. I hesitated before letting him in. Unlike Margaret, Robert had always treated me kindly, though his silence in the face of her schemes had been just as hurtful. "I found these," he said, placing a folder on my coffee table. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside were emails between Margaret and Sarah, dating back months. They outlined everything: The manipulation of Daniel through Sarah's pregnancy, their research into property laws, and their plan to renovate my house while I was too busy working hospital shifts to notice. I stared at the damning evidence, my voice quiet. Why are you showing me this now? Robert sighed, the weight of years of inaction pressing down on him. Because I've seen this before. Margaret did something similar to Daniel's first girlfriend in college. She decided the girl wasn't good enough and pushed her out. The poor thing transferred schools, and Daniel, he didn't stand up for her. I kept quiet then, told myself it wasn't my place. But watching them do this to you, knowing how much you've given to this family, I can't stay silent anymore. I studied the emails, my lawyer's words ringing in my ears. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case. There's more, Robert said hesitantly. The housing inspector called Margaret this morning. The duplex is in worse shape than anyone realized. Structural issues, severe code violations. She's been collecting rent illegally for years. Before I could respond, another knock came at the door. This time it was Helen, looking worried. Emily, you need to see this, she said, holding up her phone. On the screen was Sarah's latest Instagram post. A tearful video ranting about toxic family members and the stress they were putting on her and her unborn child. The comments were brutal. Locals who knew the truth were calling her out, and it was clear her carefully curated image was cracking under the pressure. My phone buzzed again. It was my lawyer. Emily, they're ready to negotiate. All of them. An hour later, I sat in my lawyer's office, facing the people who had tried to erase me from my own life. Margaret's flawless composure was gone. Her shoulders slumped. Sarah's mascara was streaked down her face, and Daniel looked utterly defeated. Here are our terms, my lawyer began, his tone firm and unyielding. Emily gets the house back immediately, and all renovation costs will be reimbursed. Mrs. Parker will face the legal consequences of operating an illegal rental property. And we have ample evidence of attempted property fraud should you wish to contest any of this. You can't prove anything, Margaret snapped, but Robert's quiet voice cut through her bluster. Enough, Margaret. He placed the folder of emails on the table with finality. It's over. Sarah dissolved into sobs, real ones this time. My followers are calling me a fraud. My sponsorships are pulling out. Mom, fix this. But Margaret was staring at the emails, her face pale and drawn. Robert, how could you? How could I? He replied, his voice trembling with years of suppressed frustration. How could you? You jeopardized our son's marriage, our grandchild's future, because you couldn't bear to give up control. Daniel finally spoke, his voice hoarse and broken. Emily, I am so sorry. I should have stood up to them. I should have protected you, our home, our marriage. I looked at him, really looked at him. Yes, you should have. We can fix this, he pleaded. Move back home, start over. But my lawyer cut in smoothly. The house will be returned to Emily's sole ownership, and given the circumstances, she's filing for divorce. The room erupted in protests, but I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. Daniel, I said calmly, you didn't just fail to protect me. You helped them hurt me. That's not something we can come back from. 6 months later, I stood in my fully restored home, finally feeling like it was truly mine again. The walls were painted in colors I loved, my grandmother's furniture was back in place, and the house felt warm and inviting, no longer tainted by their schemes. Sarah had moved out of state, her social media empire in ruins. Margaret and Robert were in marriage counseling after Robert finally found the courage to stand up to her. The illegal duplex had been renovated and turned into affordable housing through a local charity. As for Daniel, he'd sent me a letter last week. He was in therapy, finally confronting the toxic dynamics of his family. A small part of me hoped he'd find happiness, but not with me. I learned my worth, and it was far too high to ever settle for less again. The doorbell rang. Helen stood there, holding a casserole dish and grinning. Ready for your housewarming party? She asked, pulling me into a hug. I glanced around at the home I had fought so hard to reclaim. You know what? I said, smiling. I am. Sometimes losing everything teaches you exactly what you're capable of. Margaret thought she could erase me, Sarah thought she could replace me, and Daniel thought he could choose them over me. They all learned the hard way what happens when you underestimate someone's strength. Now let me ask you, have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to control your life? How did you find the strength to fight back? Share your story in the comments below. My name is Hannah Wilson, and right now, I'm staring at my business account. The balance, zero. Every dollar I've worked so hard to earn is gone. Jessica, my sister-in-law and trusted accountant, claims she borrowed the money. Her words, family helps family, echo in my mind as I refresh the banking app again, praying this is some kind of glitch. Let me rewind. 3 years ago, I launched Wilson Creative, a boutique marketing agency born from years of 80-hour work weeks and relentless ambition. It wasn't easy, but with sleepless nights and unwavering determination, I grew the agency into a thriving business with a team of 15. Then, 8 months ago, Jessica showed up at my door, her face streaked with mascara and desperation. She'd lost her accounting job and was drowning in bills. "I just need a fresh start," she pleaded over dinner, her voice breaking. "Hannah, you know how hard I worked to get my CPA license. Please just give me a chance." Mark, my husband, squeezed my hand. His eyes said it all. "She's family. Help her." I hesitated. My gut screamed caution, but as I watched her sob into her pasta, listing her mounting debts and rent troubles, my heart overruled my instincts. "Okay," I relented. "You can start Monday as our accountant, but Jessica, this is more than a job to me. It's my dream. Please don't let me down." She hugged me tightly, almost too tightly. "You won't regret this, I promise. Family takes care of family, right?" At first, she was perfect. Jessica streamlined our accounts, organized payroll, and uncovered tax deductions I hadn't known existed. Clients praised our professionalism. Employees were relieved to have the finances running smoothly. For the first time, I felt I could focus on growing the agency instead of drowning in admin. But cracks started to show. Jessica began arriving late, citing traffic or vague appointments. She flaunted a new designer bag one week and a luxury car the next, dismissing it all as great deals. The books balanced, so I looked the other way. Until this morning. The call came from Dave, one of our largest clients. "Hannah, there's a problem with our payment. Your invoice says we're overdue, but we sent it weeks ago." Confused, I promised to investigate. That's when I logged into our business account and my world collapsed. Zero balance. 3 years of hard work, every client payment, every employee paycheck, gone. Panicked, I called Jessica. She picked up immediately, her tone almost cheerful. "Oh, that? Don't worry, I just moved some funds around. Family helps family, remember? I needed to borrow it for a bit." My breath caught. "Borrow?" "Jessica, that's $350,000. That's not your money." "Relax, Hannah," she said with an exasperated sigh. "I'll pay it back eventually. Mark always said what's his is mine too. And since he's your husband." I hung up, my hands shaking with rage. When I tried calling back, my number was blocked. At the office, her desk was cleared out. On social media, she was posting from an airport lounge. Off on a new adventure. Sometimes you just have to leap. Hashtagless #new beginnings. Now I sit here in an office I built from nothing, trying to process the devastation. How do I tell my employees their paychecks might not come? How do I tell Mark's sister just sabotaged everything we've worked for? My phone buzzes with a text from my mother-in-law. Jessica told me everything. "How could you drive her to this? Family should support each other, not hoard money like you do." I close my eyes, anger and heartbreak threatening to overwhelm me. This isn't just about money. It's about betrayal, trust, and fighting for what's right. I've built this business from the ground up, and I'm not about to let Jessica's selfishness destroy it. She may have emptied my accounts, but I'm not going down without a fight. My hands shook as I stepped into the police station that afternoon, every step feeling like an act of betrayal against Mark. But what choice did I have? As I sat across from Detective Roberts, laying out bank statements and transaction records, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. More angry messages from my in-laws. "Mrs. Wilson," Detective Roberts said, scanning the documents, "these transfers weren't random. Multiple small amounts moved through various accounts over months before the final withdrawal. This wasn't impulsive. It was methodical." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Just then, my phone lit up. Mark was calling. I'd avoided him all day, but I couldn't keep dodging forever. "I need to take this. I said quietly, stepping into the hallway. Hannah, what the hell is going on? Mark's voice cracked with tension. Mom's calling me nonstop, saying you're out to ruin Jessica. And Jess sent me this text about borrowing money. She didn't borrow it, Mark. I interrupted, my voice cold but steady. She drained our business accounts. All of them. She stole $350,000 and disappeared. There was silence on the other end. When Mark finally spoke, his voice sounded strange, almost detached. There's got to be some mistake. Jess couldn't. Check her Instagram, Mark, I said, exhaustion lacing my tone. She's in Dubai. Another long pause, then maybe she's just regrouping. You know, she's been struggling since her divorce. We should talk to her, work this out as a family. Work it out? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mark, I have 15 employees waiting for paychecks. Clients who've already paid for campaigns we can't deliver. This isn't a misunderstanding or some family issue. It's theft. You're at the police station, aren't you? His voice turned cold, almost accusing. She's my sister, Hannah. My family. And I'm your wife, I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. This is our life she's destroying. That evening, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by the remnants of everything I'd worked for. My employees had gone home, blissfully unaware that tomorrow might be our last day. My phone sat on my desk, the screen lighting up with missed calls and voicemails, each more accusatory than the last. Then my computer pinged, a new email. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Subject, a friendly reminder. Dear Hannah, by now, you've probably noticed the changes to the accounts. Don't panic. I've been planning this for months. Mark and I grew up sharing everything, but then you showed up with your rules and professional boundaries. So I made it my business to learn all about your company, your clients, your vulnerabilities. The money is just the beginning. Check your client contracts, specifically the ones I revised last month. You'll find some interesting changes to the payment terms. Oh, and those tax deductions I found. Let's just say the IRS might have some questions. Go to the police if you want, but remember, I have all your company's financial records. One wrong move, and I'll make sure the world knows about those creative accounting practices you use when starting out. Family helps family, right? XOXO, Jessica. I stared at the screen, my hands ice cold. Jessica hadn't just stolen money, she had laid traps everywhere, creating a web of sabotage that could ruin me even if I recovered the funds. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mark. Coming home late. Need time to think. Mom and Dad want a family meeting tomorrow to discuss this mess he created. A mess I've created. My jaw tightened. I opened my laptop, determined to document everything. Every transaction, every contract change, every manipulative message. If my family wouldn't stand by me, I'd have to protect myself. Just then, the office door creaked open. I glanced up to see Sarah, my assistant, standing in the doorway. Hannah, I stayed late to finish some filing, and I found something weird in last week's backups. You need to see this. Look at this, Sarah said, pointing to her screen. A hidden folder of backed up emails filled the monitor. Jessica created shadow accounts for every client, siphoning payments for months. But she made one critical mistake. She used the company's server for everything, thinking she'd erased it all. My heart pounded as we dug deeper. The emails revealed transactions to offshore accounts, exchanges with dubious consultants, and even a step-by-step plan to sabotage my company's reputation after her departure. But the most shocking discovery was a string of messages between Jessica and my mother-in-law, Helen, dated months earlier. Mom, it's all set up. Once I drain the accounts, we'll use Hannah's client list to launch our own agency. When the business fails, Mark will have no choice but to leave her. You were right, she's never been good enough for him. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just Jessica acting alone. Helen had been in on it from the start. The next morning, I walked into the family meeting at my in-laws' house with a folder of evidence in hand and my lawyer on speed dial. Mark sat at the table, his face lined with exhaustion. Helen, ever the matriarch, sat at the head of the table, exuding false concern, while my father-in-law, Thomas, scrolled on his phone. Well, Hannah, Helen began, her voice oozing fake sympathy. I hope you're here to apologize to Jessica. This vendetta of yours. I slammed the folder onto the table, cutting her off. Before you lecture me, he might want to read your own emails, Helen. The ones where you helped Jessica plan to ruin my business. The room fell silent. Helen's face went pale as Mark grabbed the folder, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. "Mom, what is this?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Helen stammered, "It's nothing, Mark. Just misunderstood conversations." Misunderstood. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a voicemail from Jessica. "Listen to this." Jessica's voice filled the room, cold and calculated, as she detailed their plan to take over my client list and destroy my reputation. With every word, Mark's expression grew darker. "I've already filed charges against Jessica," I said calmly. "The police are especially interested in these emails, Helen. They show conspiracy and premeditation." "You wouldn't dare," Helen hissed, her mask slipping. "We're family." I stood, my voice steady. "Family? Family doesn't steal someone's life's work. Family doesn't manipulate their own son to destroy his wife. Family stands together, not tears each other down." Thomas finally looked up from his phone, his face grim. "Helen, what have you done?" Everything unraveled after that. Thomas, a respected judge, was appalled by his wife and daughter's actions. He immediately froze the accounts Helen shared with Jessica, ensuring they couldn't access more funds. 2 weeks later, Jessica was arrested trying to enter Canada with luxury items, a forged passport, and a new identity. Thankfully, a significant portion of my company's money was still recoverable from accounts she hadn't fully drained. Helen faced her own reckoning. The scandal forced her to resign from her cherished charity boards, and Thomas filed for divorce, unable to forgive her betrayal. As for my business, we not only survived but thrived. Clients rallied around us when they learned the truth, and Sarah's discovery of the backups prevented Jessica's tampering from causing lasting damage. Mark and I had a long road ahead. The betrayal shook him deeply, and he moved out temporarily to process the fallout. But unlike his mother, he chose to stand with me, facing the truth over blind loyalty. Counseling helped us begin to rebuild the trust that Helen and Jessica had tried to shatter. 6 months later, I sat in my newly expanded office, watching my growing team work with purpose. The betrayal had taught me harsh lessons about trust, but it also revealed who truly had my back. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Just finished moving back in. Dinner tonight to celebrate your best quarter yet." I smiled, typing back, "Yes, and Mark, thank you for choosing us." Sometimes family isn't defined by blood or marriage. It's about the people who stand beside you when others try to tear you down. Jessica and Helen thought they could destroy me with their betrayal, but all they did was show me the true meaning of family.